Everyone in the courtroom assumed the outcome before the hearing even began. One parent arrived with an expensive legal team, designer clothes, and a life of comfort that could buy almost anything. The other walked in quietly, alone, with no show of wealth, only years of care and sacrifice behind them. On paper, the choice seemed obvious. Money means stability. Resources mean opportunity. But as the case unfolded, the court faced a question no bank account could answer. When it comes to a child's future, what matters more, wealth or love? Many people believe that money guarantees a better life, better schools, safer neighborhoods, more opportunities. And in many ways, that's true. Courts must consider financial stability when deciding custody. But money cannot attend every school event. It cannot listen to a child's fears at night. And it cannot replace emotional presence. This story isn't about blaming wealth or praising struggle. It is about how courts weigh material comfort against emotional security, and why that decision is never as simple as it looks. From the outside, the difference between the two parents was impossible to miss. One arrived at court in a luxury car, accompanied by a team of well-dressed lawyers. Their documents were neatly organized in expensive folders, and their confidence filled the room before they even spoke. The other parent arrived quietly, alone, carrying a worn bag filled with papers that had been carefully kept over the years. There was no display of wealth, no legal team creating an impression, just a calm presence shaped by years of responsibility and care. From the very beginning, many people in the courtroom assumed the decision would be simple. Money speaks loudly in the world, and in court, it often speaks first. The wealthy parent's case was built on numbers and opportunities. Income statements showed a lifestyle of comfort. Private schools, extracurricular programs, international travel, and a future without financial limits were laid out in careful detail. Their lawyers spoke about stability, structure, and access. They described a home with space, security, and resources that could give the child every possible advantage. Everything sounded reasonable, logical, even impressive. It was the kind of life many parents dream of giving their children. And on paper, it looked like the safer choice. But courts don't just look at what a parent can buy. They look at what a parent provides when money is not involved. And that is where the balance began to shift. When the loving parent spoke, they did not talk about income or assets. They talked about routines, about waking up early to make breakfast, about helping with homework late at night, about knowing when the child was quiet because something was wrong and when silence simply meant they were tired. These details were not rehearsed. They were lived. And although they did not come with receipts or financial statements, they carried weight, because they showed consistency. The court began to examine daily life instead of future promises. Who attended school meetings? Who knew the names of teachers? Who noticed changes in mood or behavior? Who stayed home when the child was sick? These questions revealed a truth that money could not hide. While the wealthy parent provided resources, their involvement was often delegated. Nannies, assistants, schedules managed by others. Not neglect, but distance. And distance matters in a child's emotional world. The loving parent, by contrast, had built their entire life around the child's needs. Work schedules were adjusted. Opportunities were sacrificed. Personal comfort was often placed second. This wasn't framed as martyrdom or struggle. It was simply reality. And that reality showed up in the smallest details. Bedtime routines, school lunches, emotional support during difficult moments. The court listened carefully, because these details revealed something crucial: presence. The wealthy parent's legal team argued that love alone does not pay bills or secure futures. And they were right. Love does not buy books, food, or education. But the court also recognized that money alone does not create emotional safety. A child does not measure love in square footage or bank balances. They measure it in attention, trust, and availability. And over time, the court began to understand that emotional security is not a luxury. It is a necessity. The judge asked questions that went beyond finances. How does each parent handle conflict? How do they support the child during emotional stress? What happens when the child is afraid, sad, or overwhelmed? These questions could not be answered with spreadsheets or plans. They required reflection. And the answers revealed a difference in parenting styles that mattered deeply. The wealthy parent spoke confidently about providing solutions. Tutors, therapists, structured programs. These were not bad answers. They showed responsibility, but the loving parent spoke about listening. about sitting with the child during difficult moments, about letting emotions be felt instead of fixed, about creating a safe space where the child did not feel like a problem to be managed, but a person to be understood. The courtroom grew quiet as these differences became clear. The court also examined history, not just recent behavior, but patterns over time. Who had been there consistently? Who adjusted their life again and again to meet the child's needs? Who showed up even when it was inconvenient or exhausting? Patterns tell stories that single moments cannot, and the pattern that emerged was undeniable. The loving parent had been present through every phase, every challenge, every quiet moment that never made it into official records. One of the most powerful moments came when the child's routine was discussed. The loving parent described mornings filled with familiar comfort, afternoons structured around homework and play, evenings marked by conversations and shared time. These routines were not perfect, they were simple, but they were stable. The wealthy parent described a life of variety and opportunity. Travel, experiences, new environments, exciting, yes, but often changing, often busy, often overwhelming for a child who needed predictability. The judge understood something many people overlook. Children do not need constant excitement. They need consistency. They need to know what tomorrow looks like. They need to feel anchored. And while wealth can offer opportunity, it can also introduce instability when schedules change constantly and caregivers rotate. The wealthy parent was not painted as uncaring. That was never the issue. They loved their child. That was clear. But love expressed through provision is different from love expressed through presence. And the court had to decide which mattered more at this stage of the child's life. This was not a judgment of character. It was a judgment of fit. As the case continued, the judge paid close attention to how each parent spoke about the child. The wealthy parent spoke about potential, about success, about preparing the child for a competitive world. The loving parent spoke about happiness, about emotional health, about letting the child grow at their own pace. Neither perspective was wrong, but one aligned more closely with the child's current needs. The court also examined the child's reactions. Not words spoken directly, but behavior observed by teachers, counselors, and professionals. Where did the child appear more relaxed, more open, more emotionally regulated? Reports showed that the child felt safest in the environment created by the loving parent. That safety translated into better focus, better sleep, and stronger emotional balance. These are things money cannot force. The wealthy parent's lawyers argued that comfort and opportunity would eventually outweigh emotional adjustment. That children are resilient, that they adapt, and children do adapt. But the court recognized that adaptation is not the same as thriving. A child can survive many environments. That does not mean all environments are equally healthy. The judge explained something that changed the tone of the courtroom. Parenting is not about who offers more. It is about who meets needs more consistently. And at this moment in the child's life, the need was not expansion. It was grounding, not stimulation, but security. The loving parent never claimed to be perfect. They acknowledged limitations, financial struggles, missed opportunities, but they also showed honesty, self-awareness, and emotional availability. As the hearing went on, it became clear that the court was not choosing between wealth and poverty. It was choosing between two parenting approaches, one focused on providing externally, the other focused on nurturing internally. And the evidence showed that internal nurturing had built a stronger emotional foundation. The judge also considered the future, not just the next year, but the next phase of development. A child who feels secure is more likely to take healthy risks later, to explore, to grow. Emotional safety is the base from which independence develops. Without it, opportunity becomes pressure, and pressure, over time, erodes confidence. The wealthy parent's case began to feel heavy with expectations. Success, achievement, advancement, none of it was wrong. But the child was still young, still forming identity, still learning how to trust the world. The loving parent's environment allowed space for mistakes, for rest, for being a child. When the judge summarized the evidence, it was clear that money had never been dismissed. Financial stability mattered. But it was not the deciding factor. The deciding factor was emotional continuity. The child needed someone who was consistently there, emotionally and physically, without delegation or substitution. The court acknowledged that wealth can enhance a child's life, but only when built on a foundation of emotional security. Without that foundation, even the best resources lose their value. A child who feels unseen cannot fully benefit from opportunity. The final realization was quiet but powerful. Love had left a record too, not in bank statements, but in routines. In patterns, in emotional health, in trust. And that record was stronger. This case reminded everyone in the courtroom that parenting is not measured by what you can provide once, but by what you provide every day. The presence that calms fears. The attention that builds confidence. The consistency that creates safety. These are not luxuries. They are necessities. And when the court had to choose, it did not choose comfort over care. It chose the parent who showed up, not with money, but with love that never missed a day. In the end, the court's decision surprised many. It showed that wealth alone does not define good parenting. A child needs more than opportunity. They need connection. More than comfort. They need care. This case became a reminder that love leaves a paper trail too, written in consistency, sacrifice, and everyday presence. When the court had to choose, it chose the parent who showed up, not with money, but with heart.